The Volkswagen Scirocco has been around for a while now, so VW has given it a midlife update to keep it looking fresh, and I'll just talk you through the changes now. If you notice, in the headlamps we've got some LED daytime running lights. There's also a new bumper. We've got some extra grills on it there like you get on the Golf GTI, and the fog lamps are new as well. Round the side you've got some fresh alloy wheel designs, and if you come to the back, I quite like this. It's minor, but it does make a difference. If you look at the boot lid, it's now got a very bold crease in it, and that helps modernise the rear end a little bit. We've also got some new tail lamps there, and they've got LEDs in them as well. There's a redesigned rear bumper as well, with some air vents there, which are, yeah, they're just for show, really.
The same can be said of the storage bin under the armrest, though the other cubby spaces are actually quite good for this type of car. If you're wondering why we're highlighting this, it's because Scirocco buyers are actually very pragmatic people.
Despite being a sporty model, 75% of all Siroccos Volkswagen sells are actually diesel models, and you can get the 2-litre diesel in 2 states of tune. There's the 181 brake horsepower version, which will do 0 to 60 in just 7.5 seconds, yet will return 64 miles per gallon. So how's that for having your cake and eating it? However, you might want to just save yourself a bit of cash and go for the 148 brake horsepower model. It still does 0 to 60 in 8.6 seconds, and actually in-gear shove is really impressive. So you don't really miss that extra performance from the more expensive car, and it will return 67 miles per gallon. They both come as standard with a 6-speed manual gearbox, which is very nice to use, but if you want an automatic, you can get Volkswagen's excellent DSG paddle shift auto with it. Now, unless you're doing lots and lots of miles, I would suggest you forget the diesel cars and go for one of the turbo petrols. Don't go for the 1.4 because that's just a little bit too slow. You want to go for one of the 3 2-litre turbo petrol engines. Now, the mid-range one is probably the best bet. It's got 217 brake horsepower, and it's good for 0 to 62 miles an hour in just 6.5 seconds. However, if you want the hottest Scirocco, then you're going to need the R model. It has 276 brake horsepower and can do 0 to 62 miles an hour in just 5.7 seconds.
The R model gets some uprated brakes and stiffer suspension too, though this will be too jarring for most people. The normal models, however, are much easier to live with.
For a sporty car, the Scirocco is reasonably comfortable to travel in. You can get it with some optional adaptive dampers, which help improve the ride and make it glide over bumps that little bit better when you have it in the comfort mode. However, the normal setup is actually adequate. Let's just say it's firm, but it's fair. So when you go over a bump, you do feel it, but it's not so jarring that it annoys you. And let's face it, you want your sports car to make you feel connected to the road. The seats really do help you feel connected to the road because you sit low in this car and they're body hugging. And overall, yeah, the controls, they just feel in the perfect position for you. And when you drive it, it is a car that responds relatively well to your inputs, and you've got lots of grip and the steering is accurate. It's just that maybe compared to the very best hot hatches, it just lacks a little bit of fun factor. Something like a Renaultsport Megane is just that little bit more exciting to drive.
And that highlights the main issue with the Scirocco. It's no better to drive than a normal hot hatch, yet the coupe body style creates a number of problems.
There are some other reasons why you may be better off with a more traditional hot hatch, and one is visibility, because here in the Scirocco it's a little bit dark and dingy. You've got this big A-pillar there which creates a bit of a blind spot, but the worst thing about it is the view out of the back. Just have a look at that. Yeah, it's not very good, is it? And then there's the practicality. Now, I wouldn't say the Scirocco's boot is exactly titchy, but it's definitely not as big or as useful as on its sister car, the Golf GTI. It's also got a huge load lip. For instance, from where you are, the boot looks empty, but oh no, look, I've got a suitcase in, and if this suitcase was full, I might have done my back in by trying to lift it over this big lip. Another thing which affects the practicality of this boot is this toolbox here. Now, that contains the tools for the spare wheel, which is under there, which is good to have that, by the way, but I think that if I was going to load this car up, I'd probably remove that. Then you'd be driving down the road, car fully loaded, get a puncture, and oh my God, you left the toolkit at home. You can't change the wheel. Another thing that's a bit annoying is this, when you fold the rear seats down, there you go, you'll notice you've got this big ridge there, which is less than ideal. In the Golf GTI, you have a false floor, which means you have a continuously flat load floor, which is much better. And let's go to the back seats. Now, in a way, I probably shouldn't complain that a sports car has back seats that adults can actually sit in. But once again, you compare it to a hot hatch, it's not as good. So I'll just climb inside and you will see that, okay, so I've got lots of knee room and that seat is in my ideal driving position, but I haven't got lots of headroom. Anyone over 6 foot, I mean, I'm 5'11", my head's touching the ceiling. Anyone over 6 foot is going to be like that. That's not going to be comfortable. And there's only 2 seats in the back. Some hot hatches, you can actually carry 3 people in the back. So there we go. Not quite as practical as a hot hatch. Oh, and hard to get out of as well.
Finally, Volkswagen has tried to refresh the cabin with a new steering wheel and some piano black trim on the centre console. It's also fitted some dials to the top of the dash which are supposedly reminiscent of those in the original Scirocco, but really this edition should have stayed back in the 1970s. Instead, VW should have upgraded the ageing infotainment system to the more modern one you get in the Golf and Polo, as inside the Scirocco is starting to look a little bit past its sell-by date.
Really though, the main reason people buy this car is for how it looks on the outside, and the updates VW has made to it do keep it looking fresh. However, if you want a sporty car that's more practical, then you should check out our review of the Golf GTI by clicking up here. If you want an even hotter hot hatch, then check out our review of the Renaultsport Megane by clicking down here. If you click down here, you can see our very latest video review, and if you click up there on our logo, you can subscribe to our channel.